while I'm working on completely reassembling the finished product and putting it through the ringer with some testing, I'll talk about how I took apart, cleaned, and fixed some issues with those 5.25-inch floppy drives. Now, as you've seen here, I obviously haven't put both the drives back into the chassis, only the larger capacity, the 1.2 megabyte 5.25-inch drive, and I've added a 3.5-inch 1.44 megabyte drive to the mix. I'm leaving out the slightly smaller capacity 360 kilobyte drive. It has been cleaned and probably put back together, and I'm adding a little sticker saying when I've done the restoration and the final state of it before I put it away. But let's talk about what needed to be done to those drives and how to take them apart. One of the tasks is going to be cleaning those floppy drives. It came with two 5.25-inch floppy drives. One of them is a 1.2 megabyte from 1986, manufactured for IBM. And then the second one is of a very similar appearance, you can see, but the difference here, it has a little star down here. This is from the same year, but it's a 360K drive, also manufactured for IBM. That one was at the very bottom of the case down here, pretty much inaccessible, and it had a big hole in here with the 1.2 megabyte one mounted up here. You can see this is the only one that has the sleds mounted to the side. This is where it just slides in to the case. I'm thinking we're probably leaving this one as a spare drive. We'll clean them both anyway, and we'll have to figure out how to take them apart, but I will try to find somewhat of a color-matched 3.5-inch floppy drive to put in as a second, or maybe even the primary drive. And in order to mount this, I have this little beauty here, the sled to put that drive, mount that in the middle so it has the same form factor for a faceplate. The color, it's a little bit off, but this is not supposed to win any beauty contests. If I want to, I can probably spray paint this to be a little bit more closely aligned with this color here. Yeah, so this I bought used, so that will also have to be taken apart and cleaned, so that's what we're doing right now. Alright, I've already taken off this little cover here. It's just two screws, Phillips screws. I've unplugged this cable and I'm trying to see the read-write head is under here, whether I can get away with not removing these cables here. I'll simply flip this over, and there we have the read-write head, and I have plenty of these for some cleaning. I have my 99% IPA, and then I'll have some lithium grease. And what I usually use is this product here. I just spray a little bit into this container, and that usually works pretty well. I have some oil somewhere else as well, but I probably won't need that today. This looks pretty clean. There's a little bit of dust on some of those rails down here. I can see. I don't want to move this too much, but I just need to lift this up gently So let's add some alcohol and then gently, very gently lift this up and clean the heads. You definitely don't want to bend this up too much, otherwise the spring that holds this against the magnetic surface is going to get overextended and might not hold this back properly anymore. Okay, now that we've cleaned the head, I can clean around this a little bit. You definitely don't want to go against these with this little bit of dirt on here. You don't want to get a dirty cotton bud against the head, otherwise stuff might get stuck on here. So I'll clean a little bit around that. There's a little bit of dust in here, but it's not too bad. And then a bit of grease on those rails down there. And let's see if this might need any lubrication. This is not too bad. So this needs a little fresh. Just a little bit messy. Okay. This seems mostly okay, so let's put just a little bit on the rails down here. And gently move this a little bit. So we can that was a little bit too much. Okay, this is moving pretty well. I think that's all we need. I might take this cover off and clean that a little bit, but this can go back on. Now, something that is worth considering is capacitors. Even though you may not have capacitors that are of the era of badly manufactured ones, they will dry out and die over time just because of pure age. and so they may have to be replaced eventually, depending on how badly they've been beaten up, what temperatures they've been exposed to, and simply whether there's any electrolyte in it left in it. It hasn't dried out. I don't see any obvious capacitors that might need addressing. This could be one. Oh, and here's a few. And these could need attention at some point. But there is definitely no sign of leakage or any other damage, and they're not bulging. We should probably test them, but for now I will assume they're okay and don't need any adjustment. And I could have lubricated this from below here. It would have saved me a little bit of mess, so let's add a little bit more. Okay. And then we have, actually, the screw does not go in here yet because it has this cover that's going over here. And now we can put the screw in. And then one last over here. And you can see that these little plastic bits here, these are the sleds that essentially hold this in the chassis. I have some spare ones here. They simply attach to the side of it for that enclosure for the 3.5-inch drive, and I am hoping that these will simply, yes, align with those holes on the side here, so I can screw them in. I need to find the right screws, of course, they're missing, and then they can go into that chassis as well. Alright, now I should check how to get the cover off, and it looks like that is simply screwed in. It doesn't look like this needs any retro-brighting, it just needs a good clean. There's my magnetic screwdriver. Get this out carefully. I mislaid the bit that goes or works with these screws, so I'll have to make do with this one. I'm hoping that is all that needs to be done to get this out. Yes, of course I will have to remove the lever here. They simply usually come out by pulling them. But maybe not this one. Is there another screw? Nope. Okay, this one does not want to come off, so I'll leave this in here and just give it a bit of a clean. Okay, it looks like I might have to loosen this with a very tiny Allen key, which of course I don't have but this seems to work just as well. Ah, okay, so this plastic piece seems to be welded against the metal, while the other way around, the metal piece is welded into the plastic piece, so that's how that works. At least now we have full access to this, and I'll be scrubbing this in a little bit of soap and water, and I'll give this a bit of a clean with some of our favorite. Good all-rounder cleaning solution. Window cleaner. And this is probably the grossest part because that's touched the most for locking in the floppies. Oops. All right, that is clean. There is a remarkably little dust in here, so this has definitely not seen a lot of dirt in its lifetime. Or it has been added as a replacement for a drive that was busted. Let's give this a little bit of a clean with the Windex. This is also relatively clean, so I might not even need to clean this off in a sink. Alright, all of our parts are now clean and dry. So I've already put the front bezel back on this. Now comes the handle. Oop. And that is the 1.2 megabyte drive done. Here we have the 360K, which we will probably not use, but we'll put it back together anyway. Next comes the 3.5 inch drive. It seems to has a little bit of dust in here, so we'll clean that off with some alcohol real quick. And let's try and get this cover off. Should be pretty easy. It's not screwed in, and there we have the drive. Doesn't look too bad. There's no corrosion or anything in here. I'm not going to touch the inside. On the outside we'll be wiping off those fingerprints later because those might be causing corrosion later on. Here's the read-write head. So that gets some cleaning, and then let's see if we can carefully move this. Nope. So we'll be cleaning in there and then lubricating the rail. We'll get a fresh one, add some alcohol, and clean those heads. And then everything around it. And this is not very dirty from what I can see, so you should be able to make quick work of this. Of course, I have to figure out and make sure it still works. I'll also be taking this off. Just careful with those clips. And give that a clean in the kitchen sink. That definitely needs it. And then this one here, I hope simply... Good question. How does this come off? I should probably take off this top cover, but that will be very fiddly because of all the little springs that I would have to carefully detach and then put back on. So I'll see if I can get away with just getting in there and cleaning it from here. These little openings. Now I've already mounted the 3.5-inch drive in this adapter bracket, put the faceplate on and installed one of the rails. Looks like this will fit, and I'm going to add the second one here. Now these have to sit fairly low in order to fit properly. And I'm hoping there is enough clearance from that other drive. Get that second screw. I will have to make do with just screwing in one pair per side instead of two, because there is no second hole where it's supposed to go. But I think we'll be fine. Now, of course, the 5170 was not designed to hold these types of floppy drives with the Burke connector, so we'll have a little adapter cable here to plug in a Molex power cable, and then I'm hoping we won't have to fiddle too much with funny jumper settings and other things that will get into the way of proper floppy configuration.